the paint. A great D by Puerto Rico.
4 new players. Check in.
Hello, guys. Welcome back to TFD with your girl, Cordy. There's something I really want to talk about today. And honestly, it's something that I feel like a lot of people still don't fully understand when it comes to the way basketball works around Caitlin Clark. I really cannot stress this enough. And every time I bring it up, there are always people who push back or say I'm exaggerating, but the truth is pretty simple. If you have Caitlin Clark on your team, you have to commit to playing fast. Not sometimes, not when it's convenient. I mean, you have to fully commit to it, or the whole damn thing starts looking like a mess. If you are her teammate, if you are her coach, if you are putting her on the floor, you absolutely have to double down and triple down on the pace of the game. Because the worst possible thing you can do is put Caitlin Clark in a slow, grinding half-court game and expect her to look like the same player. That's just not the environment where she thrives. And honestly, anyone who understands basketball should already know that. And I know some people hate hearing that. They think it's criticism, but it's not really criticism. It's just understanding what kind of player she is. Caitlin Clark is at her absolute best when the floor is open, when the ball is moving quickly, when the defense is scrambling, and when the tempo is high. That's where she becomes dangerous. That's where her passing vision opens up. That's where those deep transition threes become a weapon. But when you slow everything down, when the game turns into a half-court slog, when possessions are long and methodical, suddenly you're taking away a huge part of what makes her special. And yeah, that kind of slow, boring basketball can be frustrating as hell to watch sometimes. And we actually saw a little bit of that in this game. Now, to be fair, this might have been one of the better slowdown performances we've seen from Clark. It wasn't terrible, but if you've watched enough games, especially in the Women's National Basketball Association, you know exactly what I'm talking about. There have been plenty of nights where teams slowed the game down into the 70-point range, and it really affected her production. We've seen teams successfully drag games into that slower tempo before. It's happened more than once. And the reason teams do it is because it disrupts her rhythm. When the pace disappears, the transition opportunities disappear, and suddenly you're forcing her to operate in a completely different style of basketball. And in this game, it really looked like Puerto Rico women's national basketball team made a deliberate decision to slow things down. It felt tactical. It felt intentional. They moved away from letting the game become a run-and-gun contest and instead tried to control the tempo. They also seemed to shift away from giving her easy pick-and-roll looks in the half-court. Now, again, I haven't done a full film breakdown yet. I'm just speaking based on watching the game live and getting the feel of it. But it honestly looked like Puerto Rico had one very clear defensive priority: take Caitlin Clark out of the equation as much as possible. It didn't seem like they cared who else scored. It didn't seem overly worried about other players getting touches. Their main focus was simply getting the ball out of Caitlin Clark's hands and making sure she wasn't the one orchestrating everything. And when that happens, the game starts to look very different. There were stretches where Clark was essentially just standing on the wing or in the corner because she was being denied the ball so aggressively. And when a defense is shadowing you like that, full denial, constant pressure, it's not as simple as people think. Some fans say, well, just play off the ball. But the reality is that even the best off-ball player in the world can struggle if the defense is completely locked in on denying you. If they're face-guarding you, pressing full court, and boxing you out of every passing lane, it becomes extremely difficult to get the ball.
At that point, the responsibility shifts to the rest of the team. The other players have to recognize what's happening and adjust accordingly. And that's where things started to get a little frustrating. There were moments where teammates simply didn't force the issue. Instead of insisting on getting Clark the ball, the offense just flowed into other actions. In some ways, it looked like the United States women's national basketball team was comfortable playing 4-on-4 without her initiating the offense. Now, sometimes that's fine. If you have enough talent on the floor, you can survive those stretches. But it still raises questions about decision-making and about whether the team is maximizing what Clark brings to the table. Take someone like Angel Reese, for example. Reese has a lot of strengths. She rebounds extremely well, she competes hard, and she can make some solid passes when the opportunity is obvious. There was even a moment in the game where she caught the ball down low and delivered a really nice pass to a cutter. That was a good read. But there's a difference between seeing one pass and anticipating an entire sequence of plays. That's where players like Caitlin Clark are different. Clark can often see 2 or 3 steps ahead. She can read defensive rotations before they happen and throw passes that most players wouldn't even attempt. So when the offense shifts away from her control, you lose that predictive vision. And that's part of why the pace matters so much. When the game speeds up, Clark's instincts take over. She reads the floor faster than most players and makes quick decisions that create advantages before the defense can set itself. But when the game slows down, everything becomes more deliberate. The defense has time to load up, passing lanes shrink, and suddenly the offense starts looking stagnant. And that's exactly what we saw at times in this game. Puerto Rico slowed the tempo, they denied Clark the ball, and Team USA seemed comfortable letting the offense run without her initiating the offense. It worked in the sense that the team still controlled the game, but it also felt like they were leaving a lot of offensive potential on the table. There was even a moment where the transition opportunity was right there. One player had already taken off sprinting down the floor, Clark was ready to launch the ball long, and instead the inbound went to someone else. And you just sit there thinking, what the hell are we doing? Those are the moments where the sharpness has to be there. If the defense isn't set, if the floor is open, you have to push the pace. That's the whole point of having someone like Caitlin Clark running your offense. When the team actually does that, the difference is obvious. We've seen flashes of it. There were sequences in previous games where players like Paige Beckers would sprint to the corner the moment a shot went in, knowing that Clark might throw a long outlet pass. Those little habits are what create fast break opportunities. But when the team stops playing with that urgency, everything slows down. And when everything slows down, Clark's impact naturally shrinks. That doesn't mean she suddenly becomes a bad player. It just means the game is moving away from the environment where she's most dangerous. And that's why some fans get worried about coaching philosophies and system fit. If a coach prefers slow, grinding basketball, it can clash with Clark's strengths. Her best version shows up when the offense is pushing the tempo, attacking early, and constantly putting pressure on the defense. When the game finally opened up near the end, you could immediately see the difference. In just a couple of minutes of faster play, Clark started creating opportunities again. The floor spread out, the defense had to move, and suddenly her playmaking came back to life. That's the version of the game that unlocks her full skill set. Now, to be fair, this was just one game. It was against Puerto Rico. The result itself wasn't really in doubt. Sometimes teams experiment with different lineups or pacing just to see what works. So it's possible this was just a temporary lull or a tactical adjustment rather than a long-term approach. But it will definitely be interesting to see how things look when the competition gets stronger. Because against elite teams that are organized defensively and capable offensively, you can't afford to waste possessions or drift into stagnant basketball. A team like Italy, women's national basketball team, for example, could absolutely make a game competitive if the pace drops too much. And a team like Spain, women's national basketball team, would punish that kind of stagnation even more. That's why the tempo question matters so much. When the pace is high and the offense is flowing through Caitlin Clark, the ceiling of the team becomes extremely high. But when the game slows down and the ball moves away from her, the offense starts to look much more ordinary. And that's the balancing act going forward, figuring out how to keep the game moving fast enough to maximize Clark's strengths while still adapting to whatever defensive strategies opponents try to throw at them. Because one thing is certain, teams are going to keep trying to take the ball out of her hands. They're going to deny passes, throw traps, press full court, and force other players to make decisions. The question isn't whether that will happen. The question is how the team responds when it does. Tell me what you think. Don't forget, like and subscribe.